Greetings, everyone. Once again, it's brother Mota Monidi sharing the authentic truth brought to us by Zulula, the only teacher, the messenger. Today, the message, the teaching I'm translating, sharing is going to be sort of continuation to the one I recently did regarding the true name of Cameroon, which is Duálá. Here we're going to talk about the true name of the Wouri River and the origin of the Ngondo in Cameroon. What is the mystery surrounding that river, the Wouri, called the Wouri? What was its ancestral name? Because like I've mentioned before in the previous video, many places sometimes they change names. So what was the names before the Wouri? What was the ancestral name, the original name? And why do they practice Ngondo there? So you have to understand that that river is mysterious. There's a lot of intriguing things, and also that that is a river that confuses many. So Wouri is in present-day Cameroon, so that river is there. So Wouri, it's called Wouri. It's the German that named it Wouri, but that name changed. And the uninitiated, the Duálá people, Sawa, they practice Ngondo there. Ngondo. First, you have to know the history regarding the name. In the 13th century, it was called, then the river was named Munja-Ewodi, meaning Ewodi River. From the 16th century to the 20th century, it was known as Rios of Camaros, so Shrimp River, basically. Creveta or Camaros. From there, that's where they've taken that name then to name the entire land Cameroon, meaning the river of shrimp, or the Shrimp River. But that's not the true name of Cameroon. Like I've mentioned, the true name of Cameroon was Duálá. But before those names, there was an ancestral name. And you have to understand that they've changed the names. Even before it was called Munja-Ewodi, meaning the river of Ewodi. And from river of Ewodi, later the colonizer came, they saw that river was full of shrimp. There was shrimp in great quantity, and then they named, because of that abundance, Rios of Camaros, Portuguese for river of prawns, so, or meaning river of shrimp. Now, why did they change the name? Because in order to change history, you have to change also the names. And by changing the names, you change your destiny. You are broken, you are cut off from the source. So the explorer came to explore, and then they changed the names. There was a corrupt pope at that time that knew the story of that river, of the history also of that country, because some black ancestors spoke to their ancestors, and he was aware of that history. And so that's why they sent the explorers to come and explore the territory, and then in order to change also the name of that river, to try to change the history. That's why you're told from the 16th to the 20th century it was known as prawn, or river of shrimp. So, and you're told here, during the colonization of Cameroon by the Germans at the end of the 19th century, at the beginning of the First World War, the German, during the colonization of Cameroon by the German at the end of the 19th century, at the beginning of the First World War, the German colonists so the colonizers, changed many words from the local vocabulary, which they interpreted in their own ways. You see, because the way they will speak, they will change things. They will also change the name of many different places in that land. And because Munja is from Munja Ewodi, which would mean the river of Ewodi, they will change it Ewodi to Ewodi, they will change it to Woody. But Woody has no local etymology. You see? And then from the Woody, it will transform, it will change to Wouri. You see? So that's why now it is called Wouri. Because of that change. And it is at that place that the Duálá will practice, not all of them, but some will practice what is called the Ngondo. It is a custom. What is the Ngondo? Basically, it's a custom where they will claim someone, an initiated in their practice, will dive into the river, they will claim that he spent hours in the river to basically get into contact with the water spirit and also with the ancestors. And they will claim that when he comes out of the water, he is barely wet or sometimes he's dry, you see. But they have no proof. So all that is, the fact that he spent hours there, that's a lie. That basically they'll claim that he has the ability to spend hours in the water without breathing. And they also claim that he will emerge dry or barely wet. That is completely false. That custom that practice those ceremonies, rituals, they'll claim that they also get into contact with the water spirit known as a Jengu. Jengu means siren, and the plural for Jengu is myango. So basically get into contact with the water spirit or siren of the waters. Now, and it is practiced around the first week in the beginning of December, so around 1st, 3rd, or 4th. They'll practice Ngondo. It's an annual ceremony practice, and sometimes they will also change the periods and the dates. And so yes, the highlight of the festival is a Jengu cult ceremony. The ceremony takes place on the beach in the Wouri River, during which a follower, which they'll call an initiate, they will enthrone him in this custom in the water, visit the underwater world of the myango. So that's why the claim happens there. So first we're going to explain why they changed the name of the river. Like I said before, it was called Munja Ewodi. So the river of Ewodi. But that's not the true name. And they changed a lot of things. And you have to understand that in Cameroon, there's many areas that are mysterious. For example, you have the Mont Cameroon. The Mont Cameroon is known as the chariot of the god, or the mountain of the gods. Is considered sacred by the Sawa people, the Duálá. And it is in the Anglophone, known as the Anglophone region now. And that region sometimes is disputed. You see, there were events, disputes regarding that place, that area. And regarding the mountain, the Mount Cameroon, that's where Moses, the personage known as Moses, but his true name is Busi, went. They call it now in the current Bibles the Mount Sinai. That's the Mount Cameroon, the mountain of the gods, of the entity of the great order of things. You see? Now, so you have to understand that in Cameroon, there are many different places, many areas that are gateways, that are doors, basically to the spiritual realms, to the invisible realm. So you have, for example, different places like Sananga, Kribi, now they call it Kribi, Limbe. Before Limbe was called Victoria, but before Victoria was also, they had another name. So you have to understand that the entire region regarding Cameroon, they were strategic points, gateways of the spiritual realm. It's the very source of power from the beginning. That's where the patriarch traveled and they originated from, like I've shared. And some knew about the mystery, about some events, and that's why they, because some black people did tell them. So even regarding the 12 tribes, well, not the 12, the 13 tribes, because yes, the 13 tribes of Israel it was there in the land known as Cameroon. Is not Israel, it's Tombouanibila. So that's why the missionaries were sent there to, the explorers, they were sent there to explore, to find, and the missionaries after. Because they knew that some events took place in that area, in also the Wouri region in ancient times. So that's why they had to change the names. And yes, like I've mentioned, Cameroon means the shrimp river, the river of shrimp, but the true name was Duálá. And the Wouri River also had another name. Now we're going to go into the origin. I'm going to go to Bibèl in the Authentic Bible, Bibèl, Kálat'a, the only authentic Bible without any errors or contradiction. So Bibèl chapter 2, verse 7. This is regarding the first man, Moto. The first man was black. So the first man was created, Moto. And you're told here in Genesis, Bibèl chapter 2, verse 7, he says, Moto forged bond of friendship with all the animals on earth. The latter entered the ocean and stayed there for hours and days according to the time of man, without any kind of combination, in the company of marine monsters from large size as well as other forms of giant aquatic life such as squid, octopus, turtle, sharks, megalodon, whales. So you're told here that the first man, Moto, who was created, had forged friendship with the animals, and he spent hours and even days in the ocean, in the water, submerged without any type of combinations. And some of the Sawa, the Duálá people, they knew that, they are aware. That's why they will claim that that during that ceremony that somebody is also going there and is spending hours in there. You see? And there's always a source. There's always a source of the practices that people do and that people engaged in. So that's the very first source. And we're going to reveal the true name of Wouri. When we go in Judge chapter 11, verse 30. Judge chapter 11, verse 30. Okay. So yes, Judge Mukaisedi, chapter 11, verse 30. So this is regarding at the time of Koma, known as Gideon or Gideon in the current Bibles. Chapter 11, verse 30 says, the Dipa, the Jah and the desert nomad, steeped in the occult world, came out of their physical bodies, accompanied by a multitude of demons, gathered together, crossed the Siba in bracket Jordan, and settled in the plain of Ingele. Yes, that's the true name of the Wouri River. It is the Siba. It is known as the Jordan River in the current Bible. So don't think it is somewhere else. No, it is in what is known as Cameroon, that land. It is the Wouri River. That's the true name, is the Siba. That's the Jordan River mentioned in the current Bibles. And you're told here that at the time of Koma, the Dipa and the Jah and the desert nomad stepped into the occult world. So these were people that were initiated in the art of the mystery of exiting their body, their physical body, to fight spiritually. And they gathered at a place where they gathered together and crossed the Siba. So they gathered, the Siba was a meeting place, where a lot of spiritual battles happen. You see, it was a meeting place. They gathered together, crossed the Siba, and settled in the plain of Ingele. You see, that's why they tried to change. That's why they changed the names, to try to erase, to try to falsify. So the Wouri, it was a meeting place full of mystery. In 2 Kings chapter 3 verse, so Kinye Beba, 2 Kings chapter 3 verse 6 to 7. This is regarding Elijah or Eli and his disciple Sunga. His true name is Sunga, and the true name of regarding Eli or Elijah is Bibè. They'll call him the Tishbit, but he's Bibè of Kwese. So Bibè raptured from the visible, Sunga succeed him. So this is regarding at a time where he was to be taken, raptured into the non-visible. And you're told here in Kinye Beba, 2 Kings chapter 3, verse 6 to 7, end of missions, 50 Batopeda Mundi prophets, 50 Batopeda Mundi followed them, semicolon, followed who? Bibè, so the Batopeda Mundi, and Sunga, his disciples. Followed them. They remained at a certain distance from Bibè and Sunga, who stood on the bank of the Siba. They stood there on the banks of the Siba, so of the Wouri River, now known as the Wouri River. Verse 7, Bibè took off his loincloth, or his pagne, which was filled with energy, and struck the water of the river with it, and there was a luminous electromagnetic shock wave. The water parted on either side, and they were both able to cross on dry feet. You see? So Bibè, who was a prophet, took off his loincloth, his pagne, filled with energy, and he struck the water of the river of the Siba, of the Wouri River. You see? So you see that extraordinary things took place because the prophet, the patriarch, they knew regarding the mysteries of that river. And that was at the moment where the prophet was to be transported into the non-visible. Now, and you also have to understand that the land, regarding the area, it has changed, because before it was even regarding on the Wouri, there was greenery, trees, sacred trees, there was a forest, animals were found, were around. So it wasn't like it is now regarding the surrounding areas. It was simply transformed over time. For example, right now you're told that there is a bridge, the Wouri Bridge, called the Wouri Bridge. But before, there was not that bridge. You see, so as time go on, things change, transform. But you're told here that to cross, because they were there, Bibè and Sunga, to cross, he took off his loincloth, which was filled with energy, and struck the water of the river with it, and there was a luminous electromagnetic shock wave that parted the waters. The water. Why? What does that also mean? Because you have to understand that behind the water, there is an entity in charge of the water. There is the entity of waters. His name is Mundima Madiba Ibaiti, the entity of primitive water. So the initiates at a time in the past, they were aware they were in contact with these entities. They did not worship them, but they were in, they knew, in communication. In contact with those entities. And it's not just regarding the Wouri River, but it's also in regarding different places, mysterious places all around Cameroon. Because there's many rivers and lakes in Cameroon. So that's why you'll see many will try to go to Cameroon to explore. Some will say, for example, the Chinese, they'll go. Some will say, no, they go there for the gold, or they go there to cultivate the land and so on. But no, they are in search of a power, of a mystery. But they cannot find it. They are digging, but Duálá is the only one who knows all the different places where the entities manifest themselves when they come to Wase, so Africa. So they were able to cross. Now in 2 Kings chapter 13, verse 8 and 12. This is regarding the healing of Nama in the current Bibles. His true name is Nyenge. So Kinye Beba, 2 Kings chapter 13, verse 8 and 12. Verse 8, it says this. So this is regarding Sunga. Verse 8. Sunga sent someone to tell him, call him, go and plunge yourself 7 times in the water of Siba. Period. Then you will be healed and purified. Because Naaman, his true name Nyenge, he was a leper. So he was basically sick. And he wanted to be healed. And you're told here, Sunga sent someone to tell him, go and plunge yourself 7 times in the water of the Siba, to be, and then you will be healed and purified. Verse 12, you're told, Nyenge went down to the banks of the Siba after coming out of his anger and dipped himself 7 times in waters, as Sunga had said, and he was purified. His body became again like that of a young man. You see, he was healed. That's why sometimes you're told regarding the Ngondo that people go in there to get into contact with the spirits, to receive blessings from the spirits, to be healed. Because you see, there's an origin of those type of practice. Because in the time here of Sunga, of Naaman, his true name Nyenge, he was healed in that river, known as the Jordan River in the Korean Bible, but the true name is the Siba, now known as the Wouri. Now we go in before going to the next verse, so you have to understand that those who practice the Ngondo today, they will claim to be in contact with the spirit and so on. They will claim to be initiated, but they're not in the truth. One must be initiated to know the gateways to where the secrets was. So the old ceremony days, because they know that there's a mystery behind that. Some things took place, but now there's a lot of now they are uninitiated, not initiated in the truth. Now Kunumane Mula, so the true Christ, chapter 19, verse 12 to 13. So yes, the true Christ is the Jokwa, because like I've mentioned, we shared, Jesus has never existed. It's a fake Christ, but the true Christ has existed. Jesus doesn't mean Christ. Christ means an anointed one. Jesus doesn't mean anointed one. You see, so when we say Jesus has not existed, has never existed, is a fake Christ, that doesn't mean that the true Christ did not exist. The true Christ did exist. Is Jokwa. Now we go into the Gospel of Christ, chapter 19, verse 12 to 13. You're told here, and Jongwane resisted him no longer, period. So this is regarding the enthronement of the elder of the true Christ. And Jongwane is known as John the Baptist in the current Bibles. So, and verse 13, you're told. So verse 12, and Jongwane resisted him, the Christ, no longer. Verse 13, as soon as he was spiritually enthroned by means of the sacred oil known by the initiates, all the heavens opened spiritually. The power of the Ark of the Covenant from the protective entity of the Ark came out of the Siba Jordan and entered into him. Period. Immediately, the verb of Loba as Mundi Musangi, Holy Spirit, invested the spirit of Jokwa to accompany him in his mission of the visible. Period. So I'll read again, verse 13. As soon as he was spiritually enthroned by means of the sacred oil known by the initiates, all the heavens opened spiritually. The power of the Ark of the Covenant came of the Ark of the Covenant. The power of the Ark of the Covenant from the protective entity of the Ark came out of the Siba Jordan and entered into him. Immediately, the verb of Loba as Mundi Musangi, Holy Spirit, invested the spirit of Jokisabe to accompany him in his mission of the visible. So, when the true Christ was enthroned by Jongwane, known as John the Baptist, when he was enthroned, you're told that something took place. And where was this? It took place in the Siba. You see, Siba. So, Jordan. So it was in the Wouri, now known as the Wouri. And you're told that there was a power. All the heavens opened spiritual. The power of the Ark of the Covenant from the protective entity of the Ark came out of the Siba. So a power came out. And that's the power that some are looking for, but they cannot find. Why was that power there? Came out of the Siba and entered into him immediately. Because before the Christ came into the visible, at the time of the prophet known as Busi, so after Busi, it's Joshua in the current Bibles. Yes. So once again, go back. Yes. So after Busi, known as Moses in the current Bible, there was his auxiliary named, the one that came in after him, named Joshua in the current Bible. But his true name is Belonge. And at his time, he crossed the river, the Jordan River, so the Siba, with the Ark of the Covenant. And in the crossing, an immense power was deposited from the Ark into that water. And that's that power, that terrifying power that the Christ came to take. That's the power that the Germans sought, the English sought, the French sought, the Portuguese, and so on. A lot of people sought that power, but they couldn't find it. And Jokisabe came to be enthroned, and that power emerged and entered into him. So, that's also, you have to understand why they call Cameroon as Africa in miniature or in small. Because in every corner of Wase, so in the Muniele, in the continent, there were, for example, Pele Pele, for example. In the Pele Pele River, known as Idekel, you see there were manifestations that took place where the entities will appear to a prophet in those areas. Now, all those, because Pele Pele is in East Africa, all those different are also abounds in Cameroon, found in Cameroon, these mysteries. That's why they want to divide Cameroon. And regarding the Anglophone regions, that's also where the patriarch known as Abraham, his true name is Sango, he also traveled there, he also lived there, you see. So that's why you'll see there's a lot of disputes in sometimes those areas, and because there are a lot of spiritual manifestations in those lands all around Cameroon. Even regarding when you told regarding the tribes of Israel, the 13 tribes, it was in Cameroon, in that land. Tombouanibila, the true name. So don't think it is somewhere else. And regarding Djengu, first, regarding the Wouri River, so like I've mentioned, the true name is Siba, and Siba, it means to descend, to descend. That's when they go to practice Ngondo, they descend because they go to seek a power. They want to connect to with a water spirit called the Djengu. Djengu plural is Mengu, so meaning the siren or the sirens plural. And there's different type of sirens. There is water sirens, so Djengu Mamadziba, so meaning the sirens of the waters. There's also Djengu, so Mengu is plural, so sirens of the waters. There's also the Mengu Mango, meaning the sirens of the air. And there's also sirens of the forest, sirens of the desert, and so on. So different kind of spirit. So here the story has been restored. The true name was shared. The real name of the Wouri River is the Siba, known as the Jordan River. That's the true name, the Siba. That's where it happens, in that land now known as Cameroon. So when you're told regarding John the Baptist, that's where his true name is Jokwa. Not that John the Baptist dipped Jokwa, the true Christ, in water. No, he didn't dip him in the water, but he poured oil on him. That's the true story. So is the same Jordan they call Jordan River in the Bible is the Wouri River. Is the true name is Siba, where Sunga healed in that water. That's where Nama, so Nyenge, was healed. It was in that river where Sunga told Nama to dive. And it's also where Joshua and all those passed through with the Ark of the Covenant. So Belonge is true name. It happens there in Duálá. So that was the message regarding the true name of the Wouri, the Siba, known as the Jordan, and also regarding the origin of the Ngondo. All glory be to Loba, the only and unique Creator.